This demo will show you how to prepare your solar plate for exposure outside. I have a little sampler plate that I'll be using for my step test. It's quite a bit smaller than my transparency is, but that's okay. This will help us test the most critical portions of the image. I'm a little nervous about how the face may turn out, so I want to see on a practice version that area, and then I want at least one of these guys to be exposed to so that I can see how my hatching is working on that negative. So you definitely want to wear gloves as you're doing this process. Anytime there's a chance you might be touching the emulsion on the plate, be sure to wear gloves just to protect yourself. And the other important thing is to do this in low light. So I have turned off all my overhead lights, and all I'm working with is a clip lamp that has a bug light put in it. So it's a yellow bug light that you might use to keep the mosquitoes and flies away from your front door in your lamp posts. But if you don't have a bug light, just use as low a light as you can get by with. You just, as long as you can kind of see what you're doing. You don't want to be near an open window, and you don't want to have overheads on that may expose the plate to ultraviolet light prematurely. So this plate, because it was hard to handle this cling film with my latex gloves on, I've gone ahead and started to open the pack. I haven't exposed it yet to light, but I did loosen the cling wrap so that I could remove it pretty easily. So these plates, there's a steel backing to it. And then on the front side, it may look like there's nothing on here, but I want you to carefully check to make sure that there's not a layer of plastic on there. So this one does have a protective layer of plastic. This protects it from scratching, but if you forget to take this off, it may not allow you to make tight enough contact with your film negative. So it's important to remove this before you do the exposing. If you forget, there's still a chance that this may work, so it's not a lost cause, but you won't be able to develop the plate either while this film is on there. So if you find yourself scrubbing and scrubbing your plate after you've exposed it and you're unable to get anything to come off the plate, it's possible that you just forgot to remove this clear plastic layer. So be sure to take that off. The other thing is these plates are sometimes a little bit tacky, and that may cause part of your film negative to transfer off onto the plate as you're doing your step test. So if you're nervous about that happening, one thing you can do is you can either create a second transparency using the same drawing materials, but maybe not use your actual, the negative that you plan to use for your final plate for the step test. So if you had one that was, like here's one that I use that had similar drawing materials, I could expose this. And then if for some reason some of this paint sticks to the solar plate, it's not a big deal. The other option is to go ahead and use your actual film negative, but just be prepared to have to touch up some areas where the paint may stick to the solar plate. Another thing that may help it not stick is to dust your drawing one more time. I know some of you have already done this from the earlier demo, but you might put a little bit of cornstarch or baby powder on the part of your transparency that you are planning to expose to the step test, and then remove any excess. So this hopefully should help the drawing not stick to your solar plate. So dust off any excess. If you have too much powder on there, the powder itself can act as a stop out for the ultraviolet light. So get rid of any of the extra dust on there before we proceed. So at this point, we should have, I'm going to keep this covered until we need it. There still might be a little bit of ultraviolet light that's coming out. You want to make sure that you have a very sturdy backing board. This isn't super thick. It's a little bit flexible, but it'll make do. It would be better to have a piece of plywood that's a small piece of plywood, or if you have a rigid hardcover book that may be about the right size for your glass or plexiglass, that would be preferable to something that's as flimsy as this is, but for the purpose of the demo, this seems to be working okay. The other thing you need is a clear piece of plexiglass or glass. Glass is better than plexi because plexi also can flex a little bit, and the thinner the piece of plexiglass, the more problem you may have with making it difficult to maintain tight contact between the plexi and your transparency. So if you have a piece of glass, maybe a piece that's out of a picture frame would work. You just want to be real careful not to cut yourself on the edges. Sometimes the glass is really sharp once you get it out of the picture frame. But you could pull that glass out of a frame temporarily, do your exposure, and then put it right back in the picture frame. And one concern about plexiglass is some types of plexiglass have a UV coating on it that prevents your artwork from fading. So you'd want to make sure that the kind of plexi that you're using does not have that coating on it. This kind of plastic that I provided in the little travel packs for my students seems to be working okay. This is the one I used for the last step test that I did. So I'm pretty confident that this will still work okay. All right, so since we know that our plate is smaller than our backing board and our transparency, I'm going to position it so it's near the edge, but not completely on the edge. If you put it too close to the edge, then when we go to clamp the glass to the transparency, we'll be covering up part of the solar plate itself. So you want to make sure that you've got 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch outside of your plate so that there's places that we can clip without interfering with the image. So we've got our backing board, we've got our solar plate, and then you're going to position the portion of the plate that you want to test on the solar plate. So I might even shift it down a little bit further so that I can test the woman's face, and then we'll be clipping it with the glass on top. So I still have a little bit of cornstarch on there. I want to try to dust off. Let's use my sleeve and cover that up. Okay, so we've made a sandwich here. Some directions suggest that you put a piece of a soft material underneath your solar plate. You could do that. Some of your solar plates may have come with this protective layer, and that could go under the solar plate just to help provide a little bit tighter contact between your plate. But on your small test plate, it probably doesn't make very much difference. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and clip. Again, make sure that you're not clipping on top of the solar plate, but you're just clipping on the outer edges. And the most critical parts will be these 2 edges. I will clip at least one more on this side just to keep it from flapping loose. And we're pretty much ready to take it outside. Now you want to keep the plate protected from ultraviolet light as you're taking it outside. So this is a piece of black construction paper. If you have a black t-shirt or a black plastic bag, you do want to make sure to check the plastic bag and make sure that it's dense enough that it really is blocking light. Some plastic bags are really flimsy and they let quite a bit of light through. So make sure that whatever you're using to carry your plate out into sunshine is truly light proof. The other thing you might want to do for the step test is sometimes when you're out in the sun, it's a little bit hard to tell where the plate ends in each direction. So what I wanted to do was give myself a reference for where the plate starts at the top and where it ends at the bottom, and also to give me an idea of how much time to use for each step. So I think what I'll do is attach a little piece of, this is just masking tape or artist tape, and I wrote down my intended time. So I'm going to try a test where I expose the top part of the plate for 2 minutes. This part will have 4 minutes, this part will have 6, and the bottom fourth of it will have about 8 minutes. So I've kind of just marked off these divisions, and that will help me when I'm out in the sunshine to quickly be able to adjust how much of the plate is being exposed to the light. So we're ready to go outside.